Well, hello there, friends. Bradley Hartmann here. In episode number 257 of the Behind Your Back podcast, I interviewed Mr. Nick Kukin, the VP of Sales at the 6-location, 100-plus-year-old company, the dealer, based in New Jersey. And Nick and I were talking about some of the challenges that are facing sales development, sales teams today. And the biggest one is we have the majority of baby boomers are retiring faster than we're getting new talent onboarded and ready to take on new sales. We also have sky-high commission rates over the last couple of years, and many folks who had planned on retiring in maybe 3, 4, 5, or 6 years out are kind of reconsidering now that they've have a couple other $100,000 paychecks that have arrived in their bank account. They're reconsidering that. And these individuals, how did they learn? They kind of learned through tribal wisdom and experience over the last several decades, which is very different than the folks who are arriving now. Also, we have an entire generation of young sales professionals who have started over the last decade that have never had to prospect. Coming out of the Great Recession, every year has been a little bit better than the one before it, and they really haven't had to create, advance, and close new opportunities. They've had to just account manage existing accounts. So Nick and I talked about kind of the two primary ways that we develop sales professionals today. And number one is we give them a truck, we give them a gas card, we give them a laptop, and we tell them to get it done. That's not super effective. And we often make fun of these sales professionals that are quote unquote, quote and hope sales pros, which is I just throw out a bunch of quotes and I kind of forget about them and some percentage of them turn into orders and that's good. Well, we can't make fun of these folks if they are quote and hope sales professionals when sales leaders in this organization promote and hope. We put them in the new role and hope they do well. That's one method. The second method is the hired gun strategy. We hire someone else from a competitor, we give them a guaranteed salary, and we say, all right, bring over all your business, even though we know that's not really going to happen. So with this context, the results are somewhat predictable. And the comment that stood out to me when talking to sales leaders, one in particular on the East Coast, said something very memorable. He said, the unprofessionalism in sales today in the LBM industry is staggering. And I would argue that we have a lot of sales amateurs right now. They've never really been developed. They've never really been taught. And this conversation with Nick and collaborating with him over the last several years has caused us to create the OSR Academy, which I'll talk more about. And really the next several videos here are designed to share some of the content within it so you can learn immediately from it and to see if it could potentially be a fit for you. Now, the goal of the OSR Academy is pretty direct. It's saying, I want you guys to focus on product knowledge. You focus on PK. We're going to take care of everything else. And we're going to start with the 4 selling fundamentals, which is goals, time management, pipeline management, and prospecting. And the tagline of the OSR Academy is selling confidence. Why? Well, when you have confidence and you have discipline, the outcomes are predictable. You get accountability and you get results. Now, I'd like to introduce you to one of the core frameworks that we are going to introduce and hammer home in every single one of the terms within our 15-month programs. And whether you are a sales representative right now, or maybe you're in inside sales and you want to go to outside sales, or maybe you are a sales leader or a business owner now, this framework, I believe, is absolutely critical to getting the most out of your sales team, to have a predictable, repeatable cash flow scenario. This is what we need to do. And we call this the sales stack. Now, in video number 3, we're going to talk about pipeline management and a tool that we developed to help our clients be better at forecasting and predicting future cash flow and margin. And we end up creating a web tool, so a web application for this. We were meeting with developers that would always ask, well, what are you thinking for your tech stack? And the tech stack meant like what language you're going to code it in, where you're going to host it, like a whole set of things that I knew nothing about. And I heard this again and again. And they said, the tech stack is so important because you need to do it right now, build a strong foundation so it's successful in the future. And I realized the same exact thing applies in sales. If you do not have a strong sales stack, the way things are built up very logically, so you can have a predictable, repeatable process, it's really hard to train future strong sales professionals. What is a sales stack? Well, real simple. It's going to start with your sales process. So say you had a 5-step generic sales process that started with some research. Then you have a discovery meeting, ideally face-to-face. Then you present some options, and then you negotiate, and then you close. There you go. 5-step sales process. Let's say we give you that. So that's the P in your sales stack. Now, what is supporting that, or what follows from that are, what are the sales activities per each one of the steps? What are the skills needed for each one of those steps? And what are the tools that you need for each one of the steps? And whenever we begin an engagement with a new client, we start looking at these various elements. And sometimes we have lots of tools, but we're not really discerning on the skills. When we talk about what are these core sales activities, sometimes we don't really know. We're working hard. We're doing what we do. We get out of bed and we get her done. And then at the end of the month, we see what happens. That's okay. That's fine if that's where you're starting from, but there's a better way. And it's a sales stack. It's your sales process, your sales activities, your sales skills, and your sales tools. So right now, let's just lay out a real quick grid and let me walk through a few of these as an example. So what is our sales stack under the step for research? Well, obviously an activity is visiting the World Wide Web, doing a Google search, visiting some websites, right? This activity of maybe pre-call planning, next level thinking might include some competitive advantage analysis. We'll have a template for that. So that's a sales tool. For skills, well, skills might be online research proficiency. How good am I when I jump online navigating through different websites? And how am I already thinking about who the logical decision maker is? Those are skills. Now, what sort of tools might you have? Well, you got the tech tools, you got a phone, you got an iPad. Hopefully you have a pre-call planning template. We will have that in the OSR Academy, right? Hopefully you have some literature or product catalogs, maybe some credit forms, or maybe some samples. So all of those you can see are directly aligned underneath your 5-step sales process. Number one is research and thinking through what are the activities, what are the skills, and what are the tools. Then becomes a simple checklist. Now, to avoid creating a 28-minute video that you're not going to watch through its completion, I'm going to spend a little bit more time here as we look at the sales stack underneath discovery, because my time on the other side of the desk, working as an area purchasing manager, negotiating and interacting with a lot of sales professionals, I can tell you this process of negotiation begins at the very beginning, at the first meeting. So let's quickly review step number 2 under discovery in terms of activities. Well, an activity, you could have a customer or prospect call, you could have a customer or prospect meeting, or a customer or prospect virtual meeting. You might have an engagement with a gatekeeper. How are you planning for that? Or maybe you are going to visit the job site. Do you have a plan when you visit the job site? Now let's look at some of the skills. A lot of these skills you know of, right? Asking strategic questions, developing rapport, right? Are we intentionally developing trust? Do we know how to read body language? Do we know how to have these virtual selling skills? Do I know how to take accurate notes? All of these are critical skills that must be taught. They cannot be assumed, and all of these will be within the OSR Academy. And then what are the tools that might be underneath discovery? Well, you might have a customer goal review form. You might have a strategic question checklist. That's something we believe strongly in. You maybe have a job site visit template. Do you have a methodology to quantify the pain that this prospect or client are in? And do we have a template for executing a strong meeting? In our 15-month program of the OSR Academy, we will be introducing and reinforcing at every step of the way an entire sales stack for this sales individual. And obviously, we will be making this available to the manager and the executive who are also involved in this process of selecting someone for being part of the OSR Academy. Now, in this next video, we're going to discuss some of the principles of effective negotiation, both in your personal life and your professional life. And we're going to cover the 5 principles of effective negotiation to maintain that mindset at all times. And we're also going to talk about some of the challenges that you might be thinking about all right, we have a 15-month program for the OSR Academy. We handle all the product knowledge. You handle everything else. Who's involved? And 15 months, is it a long time? Is it too long? Is it not long enough? these are full-time professionals. How much does it cost? Like all these things. And we're going to address these one by one. But before you go, I want you to do a couple things. Number one, feel free to download this OSR Academy slide deck. It's going to go over our curriculum. It's going to go over our content. It's going to go over the investment. It's going to go over the entire program. Even if you know this is not a fit for you, I would challenge you to visit this and see how much of what we've thought through and put in here is already in place at your own business. I will also encourage you to download the PDF of this sales stack. It's generic. It's a 5-step process, but you're going to see there's nothing that you cannot handle in this to make sure that you are thinking through your own personal sales stack. If you do not have this process or system in place, the results that you will get will be, let's say, uneven at best. So that's all we've got for you today. Thank you very much. We have another video coming on negotiation, and then we have a third video where we're going to be talking about sales pipelines, the importance of forecasting well in the future, and why it's so critical to do today. As always, thanks for watching.